Hello, everyone. I think it's time that I caught up with you a bit. I've been a bit overwhelmed doing all kinds of ridiculous things. I'm a busy man. And I thought maybe I should read you a little bit from one of these stories so that we could continue with our GoFundMe uh, um, thing, which is going very well, but we have stalled at around 5,200, and I've got to get it up by another few grand, up to eight grand if possible, so that I can put this into print. It's going to be printed anyhow, even if I have to rob the bank, which I have been known to do. So I'm going to read you a little bit of a story here, just a little bit, an excerpt, just to give you an idea. I mean, it's random. It's not, it's not necessarily the best story or anything like that. It's just the one. It's good as anything to give you an idea. One expendable winter's evening, I sat with my mother in the kitchen and teased her about what she was crocheting. A swan's head fell off the side of her lap. It was going to be a fruit bowl, she said. I wondered how the limp swan would stand up. She explained that sugar water would make it hard and then it would stand up on its own. I thought that was hilarious and joked if that was possible, she could crochet anything. Maybe a chair or even a toilet. She smirked playfully at the thought, and we were both enjoying the notion when the door chimes pealed behind me on the wall. My mother looked over her glasses at the clock on the mantelpiece and wondered who it could be at 20 minutes to 10. Pierce, you might go and answer that, will you? Alexa, stop. Okay. Pierce, you might go and answer that, will you? I ran up the hill. I ran up the hall, making sure to bend down by the coal hole where the ceiling dipped. And let me go back a bit after Alexa, before Alexa. The doorbell chimed. Pierce, you might go and answer that, will you? I ran up the hall, making sure to bend down by the coal hole where the ceiling dipped and flicked the light switch on at the foot of the stairs. The wind, which had been whistling through the letterbox, widened to a howl when I unlatched the heavy wooden door. I was well used to dealing with strangers. I grew up with them constantly coming and going. Oftentimes I'd show them to their rooms or wait on them when they were sitting at the sitting room table for breakfast upstairs. On more than one occasion my mother was told that I had a good personality. I found that intriguing. It seemed to establish that I had an identity. So there was a reputation to live up to when I answered the door. I couldn't imagine that it would be a neighbour. It was too late for that. It had to be someone unusual at that hour. Could even be the guards. Maybe another slate fell off the roof. It's a miracle that no one was killed the last time. Big, heavy and sharp, like a guillotine, they'd be lethal with the momentum of a 3-story drop. The image of one being lodged into someone's skull never failed to make me wince. And so, with the cordial smile and the self-assuredness of a boy with a good personality, I opened the door to find a stranger who was greatly relieved to see me. Good evening. Can I help you? Before me, a well-built man of medium height struggled to stand in place as the rain-drenched wind tried to blow him down the quay. I felt sorry for him. It was anything but a good evening, much worse than I had imagined. Oh God, it's horrible out there. Come in quickly, please. Pardon me for calling at such a late hour. I was fortunate in the middle of this to have spotted your overhead sign. Holding a small leather suitcase, the well-spoken stranger pointed at our sign squeaking overhead in the wind. I'm wondering, are there any vacancies at all? He was wearing a green oilskin coat and had an extra flap over the shoulders, the kind that you could only buy in select men's boutiques frequented by the well-to-do. His quiff was pushed back in the orderly way of a man who was secure in his profession. And although he was wet from the rain, he appeared like he hadn't been subjected to it. Let me close the door and I'll ask, Horrible night, isn't it? He came in and stomped his feet on the hall mat. I ran down to the kitchen, remembering to bend at the coal hole. My mother was already standing and holding the swan under her arm. She looked out even though there was nothing to see from where she stood. I spoke in a soft voice, but not a whisper. I didn't want the man to think we were discussing him. Mammy, there's a man out there and he wants to know if we are fully booked for the night. She put the swan down and smarted towards the hall to see what the fuss was about. When she saw the stranger, her tone of voice altered to suit his refined appearance. She pursed her lips to create a rounder tone and applied a cautious reserve as she talked up to him. "Oh, hello. What can I do for you?" "Good evening, madam. 1,000 apologies for arriving at your door so late on this horrid evening. I wondered if I'm fortunate enough to find that you have a vacancy in the house at all." "Well, we hadn't planned on anyone arriving tonight at all. But God knows, we couldn't possibly turn you away in this weather. Should come inside for a cup of tea while we arrange a room for you." She called back to me in the kitchen, "Pierce, will you make this man a cup of tea while I arrange his room?" After hanging his coat on the hall stand, he followed my mother down to the kitchen. There was no need for her to dip her head by the coal hole, so she would have just cruised under it. Obviously, he hadn't a clue and just followed her. I could hear his head ramming into the ceiling, a loud, dull thud. I listened for his reaction, but he may have been too aggrieved to speak. I knew how painful it was, having experienced it myself upon reaching that altitude.